A witch hunt is raging through the streets of Moscow, where Ukrainian intelligence hunted down war criminals hiding under Kremlin protection on December 24th. Every car has become suspicious, every parking spot a potential crime scene, every shadow a looming threat. Moscow police and the FSB are chasing ghosts while generals and bureaucrats flee to shelters. I'm Laura Bennett, and you're watching Laura Bennett. Hit that like button right now to make sure this reaches people who need to see it. Before we dive in, subscribe to Laura Bennett and turn on notifications so you never miss our analyses. Stick around because I'll ask you a crucial question at the end, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now let's expose what's really happening in Moscow. Ukraine's targets weren't random names. They were Lieutenant Klimnov and Gorbanov, officers involved in inhumane crimes against prisoners in Ukraine, men whose names are permanently documented in the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's infamous Book of Executioners database. These individuals believed they could hide on Moscow's busiest, supposedly safest streets, protected by the Kremlin's shadow and their distance from the front lines. They were catastrophically wrong. They paid the ultimate price for their crimes, evaporating inside their vehicles in coordinated explosions that shattered Moscow's illusion of safety. Ukraine claimed immediate responsibility, and for good reason. The Russian officers who were eliminated were part of a torture squad notorious for war crimes, having systematically violated the Geneva Convention during operations in Ukraine. But what makes this absolutely extraordinary is the location. The incident took place in the Yeletka region, the so-called untouchable zone, where FSB residences and Russian elites live in supposed security, only 17 kilometers from the Kremlin itself. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message delivered directly to Putin's doorstep. Moreover, this was not a sudden, opportunistic strike, but a planned and systematic elimination operation. Just 48 hours before Klimnov and Gorbanov met their fate on that same street, the vehicle of General Kirillov, one of the key figures in Russian military doctrine and chemical weapons deployment, had also been destroyed in a precision strike. The pattern was unmistakable, the message undeniable to anyone paying attention. When we examine the technical anatomy of these incidents, what emerges is not random violence, but a cold-blooded intelligence mechanism operating with surgical precision. What happened in Moscow cannot be defined as a simple terrorist attack. This represents a massive, catastrophic breach in Russia's entire security architecture, a breach that exposes vulnerabilities the Kremlin never imagined could exist on home soil. The sophisticated nature of these operations demonstrates planning, patience, and access to intelligence that should terrify Russian leadership. The hunter has become the hunted, and Moscow's streets have transformed into a battlefield where Russia's war criminals can no longer hide behind rank or distance. The psychological impact alone is devastating. If senior officers aren't safe in Moscow's elite neighborhoods, then nobody in the Russian military hierarchy can feel secure anywhere. It all begins with coordinated moves demonstrating exactly how Ukraine's intelligence service, the GUR, and its affiliated shadow networks have successfully breached Russia's digital and physical defense lines. The names on the target list are not ordinary pawns in the Russian military hierarchy. Klimnov and Gorbanov rank among the top names in the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's Book of Executioners database, a meticulously maintained record that currently contains detailed information on more than 150,000 Russian soldiers implicated in war crimes. Their elimination is seen as a guarantee and a promise that every single name on this list will eventually be crossed off, one by one, no matter how long it takes or where they attempt to hide. The technical dimension of these operations is evident in the sophisticated choice of weaponry employed. Instead of standard improvised explosive devices that cause indiscriminate damage, the attacks involved highly advanced magnetic hull-attached IEDs. These devices attach to a vehicle's chassis with industrial-grade magnets in mere seconds and create what's known as a shaped charge effect, a directed explosion that focuses all its energy in one specific direction rather than dispersing outward. This technical detail is of vital importance because instead of dispersing the explosive energy into the surrounding environment and potentially harming innocent bystanders, it focuses the blast directly on the driver's compartment with devastating precision. This clarifies Ukraine's strategic message loud and clear. This is a justice mechanism specifically designed to target only the guilty without causing civilian casualties. It's not terrorism. It's targeted accountability for documented war crimes with surgical precision that minimizes collateral damage. So how exactly are these operations carried out in Moscow, supposedly Russia's most heavily guarded and secure city? The answer lies in what experts are calling the most terrifying weapon of 21st century warfare: digital footprints. Every smartphone interaction, every app download, every online transaction creates a traceable pattern, and Ukraine has become masterful at following these digital trails directly to their targets with lethal consequences. When a Russian officer carelessly opens a smartphone looted from Ukrainian positions in his Moscow apartment, or when he orders pizza to his Kremlin area residence via Yandex Food, using the same personal phone number he used at the front lines, he is unknowingly broadcasting his exact coordinates directly to GUR intelligence servers in real time. Ukrainian intelligence, collaborating with open-source intelligence groups like Molfar, is turning Russia's massive data leaks into a deadly precision weapon system. Every piece of digital information becomes a potential death sentence in this new era of warfare. Leaked SDK cargo data reveals travel patterns, habitual routes, and preferred locations. Bank transactions show exactly where officers are spending money, when they make purchases, and what their financial habits reveal about their movements. Even innocent-seeming fitness apps act as real-time transmitters, revealing the instantaneous locations of Russian military personnel who never imagined their morning jog could lead to their demise. The case of General Kirillov perfectly illustrates this methodology in action. The target wasn't only physically tracked in real time, his entire digital presence, daily habits, behavioral patterns, and routines were mapped out meticulously over months of patient surveillance. Intelligence operatives studied every aspect of his life, analyzing patterns, identifying vulnerabilities, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike with maximum effect. Even something as simple as the Strava running app used by one of his bodyguards revealed critical operational information: what time the general went on which routes, what time he typically got into his car, which streets he preferred for travel, and what his standard security protocols looked like on different days. This data flowed in real time to what Ukrainian intelligence calls ghost cells, operating in the field, invisible operatives embedded deep within Russian society who can act on intelligence within minutes. This is where the concept of the enemy within becomes truly terrifying for the Kremlin and Russian security services. The Atesh partisan movement and various Russian partisan cells aren't James Bond-style foreign agents parachuting in from Ukraine with fake passports and elaborate cover identities. They are ordinary-looking Russian citizens, Crimean Tatars, ethnic minorities with legitimate grievances, and increasingly disillusioned Russians sitting next to targeted officers on the morning subway, standing behind them in line at the grocery store, or parking next to them in underground garages. They blend into the urban landscape perfectly because they are genuinely part of that landscape. They live there, work there, and operate undetected. While the Putin regime desperately tries to stop the Ukrainian army at the border with extensive trenches, minefields, and massive defensive fortifications, this invisible army is infiltrating the very capillaries of Moscow, St. Petersburg, Rostov, and other major Russian cities. Operating with encrypted communication devices and cryptocurrency funding provided by the GUR, these cells need only seconds to place that critical magnetic explosive package on the vehicle previously identified through digital intelligence. The speed and efficiency are remarkable. By the time security cameras might capture something suspicious, the operative has already vanished into the crowd, appearing as just another commuter or pedestrian going about their day. The rapid censorship of security camera footage from these incidents by Russian state media serves no other purpose than to desperately conceal the true extent of the Kremlin's catastrophic security vulnerability. But the censorship itself tells a revealing tale. If Russia was truly in control of the situation, why would they need to hide the evidence so aggressively? The flames rising in Moscow's streets trigger a massive domino effect that signifies not just the burning of 2 vehicles, but the mental and operational collapse of the entire Russian military and intelligence bureaucracy. To interpret these events as isolated police incidents would be to completely miss the strategic rupture in the bigger picture. The assassinations of Klimov, Gorbanov, and Kirillov appear as the latest and most daring links in a systematic justice and punishment doctrine that Ukrainian intelligence has been methodically spreading and weaving over the past 2 years of this conflict. This chain reaction is creating an irreversible wave of panic and paranoia among Russian officers at every level of command. However, the roots of this psychological wave are not limited to Moscow's city limits. What is truly terrifying for Russian military personnel is that geography no longer provides any protection whatsoever. This campaign stretches from the explosions in Moscow to the depths of Siberia, thousands of kilometers beyond the Ukrainian border, reaching into areas Russia considered absolutely safe and completely untouchable by Ukrainian operations. Let us recall the operation of October 25th, when Ukrainian GUR teams successfully targeted Lieutenant Colonel Veniamin Matsurin in Russia's Far East, an area considered the safest backyard imaginable, located 3,200 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. Matsurin was one of the key architects of the Bucha massacre, and as commander of the infamous Oman unit, he was considered completely untouchable by conventional justice. Russian authorities personally assured him he was beyond reach, protected by distance and obscurity. They were catastrophically wrong. A direct operational and psychological link connects the bomb that exploded in distant Siberia that day to the bombs exploding in Moscow's streets. The message Ukrainian intelligence sends is crystal clear and unambiguous. Geography cannot protect you, distance cannot save you, and there is nowhere in Russia you can hide from accountability. Similarly, on July 2, 2025, Major General Mikhail Gudkov was vaporized in a pinpoint strike at his supposedly secret headquarters in Kursk, along with 9 of his senior staff officers who died alongside him. Gudkov and the 155th Brigade he commanded were living symbols of the atrocities committed against civilians in the Kiev suburbs during the early invasion phases. Gudkov's elimination instilled a new level of fear in the Russian command echelon, the realization that we are not safe even directly behind the front lines in our own territory. Today's events in Moscow have elevated this existential fear to the absolute highest level, with a new, more terrifying understanding. We are not safe even in the capital itself, even in the most protected zones of our own country. This chain reaction, this mounting psychological pressure, is creating an irreversible wave of panic and paranoia that is fundamentally changing how Russian officers operate daily. Chaos and profound insecurity now reign in the streets of Moscow, a city that once prided itself on order, control, and the absolute authority of the state. There are security checkpoints on every corner, heavily armed guards scrutinizing every vehicle that passes. Every parking spot has become a source of deep suspicion and anxiety. Every delivery courier is viewed as a potential Ukrainian agent. Every unfamiliar face triggers alarm bells. Instead of focusing resources and attention on the war effort in Ukraine, Moscow police and the FSB are now busy chasing ghosts and shadows in their own capital, hunting invisible enemies among their own population in an increasingly paranoid atmosphere. This situation is causing a critical and damaging division of resources that Russia can ill afford at this stage of the conflict. Consider the strategic implications. Logistics lines that should be transporting desperately needed ammunition, equipment, and supplies to the front are now stuck at the massive security checkpoints established at all major entrances to Moscow. Truck drivers are subjected to hours of thorough inspection. Convoys are delayed indefinitely. The war effort suffers because the capital is paralyzed by fear of internal threats. The security forces themselves are psychologically paralyzed in ways that undermine their effectiveness. A police officer assigned to protect Moscow is now more afraid of looking under his own personal car in the morning than he is of chasing actual criminals. He doesn't know if he might be the next target on Ukraine's expanding list of war criminals. When authority melts away like this, when those tasked with providing security genuinely fear for their own lives, chaos inevitably ensues and the social contract begins to fray at its edges. The real shockwave of these explosions, however, is felt not on Moscow's public streets, but behind the thick, fortified walls of the Kremlin itself, in those famous gold-plated halls where Russia's elite make decisions that affect millions. According to multiple intelligence sources, every assassination attempt in Moscow now triggers an immediate red alert in Putin's personal security protocols. Additional layers of protection are added constantly. Travel routes are changed unpredictably. Schedules become increasingly erratic and difficult to track. In the wake of these events, a complete and consuming fear of death reigns among the Kremlin elite at all levels. No one trusts their personal driver anymore. Drivers are now viewed as potential security vulnerabilities. Bodyguards are regarded with suspicion rather than confidence. Even the food they eat is now considered a potential threat vector that could be exploited. The security cordon around the roads leading to Putin's safe-house residences, locations like Zavidovo and Valdai, has been tripled with additional checkpoints, counter-surveillance teams, armed response units, and layered defensive measures. The nickname Bunker Grandpa is no longer a joke or internet meme. It has become the literal new lifestyle of the Russian leadership. Putin's public appearances have become increasingly rare, carefully staged, and conducted under extraordinary security measures that reveal his genuine fear. The first and most tangible effect of this campaign is the observable collapse of morale within the Russian security forces at every operational level. Soldiers fighting on the front lines already knew they were being sent to what amounts to a death line, facing superior Ukrainian artillery, drone warfare, and defensive positions. However, the officers, intelligence agents, police personnel, and bureaucrats behind the lines firmly believed they were living in Moscow's safe bubble, comfortably far from the war and its direct consequences. The fate of Klimnov, Gorbanov, and Kirillov painfully demonstrated that this protective bubble was made of paper, not reinforced glass. Now, every Russian officer who has served in Ukraine or been involved in any way with war crimes lives with the constant awareness that they are on a potential target list somewhere in Ukrainian intelligence databases. Their names might already be documented. Their digital footprints might already be tracked and analyzed. This psychological burden will inevitably trigger a wave of duty avoidance, early retirement requests, or desperate applications for transfer to positions far from anything related to Ukraine within the security forces. No rational person wants to die in front of their own home, in their own parking garage, for a regime they cannot trust to protect them and which has proven itself deeply corrupt. The picture we see here is far beyond a simple series of tactical assassinations carried out for revenge or military advantage. It is a portrait of strategic irony and the complete collapse of state seriousness. The most striking aspect of the entire incident lies in the brutal conflict between legal proclamations and the fundamental laws of physics. Just days after these high-profile assassinations, on December 29, 2025, Vladimir Putin signed a new law in what appeared to be a direct response to the crisis. This law officially allows Russian officials to completely disregard the decisions of international courts, including the International Criminal Court in The Hague. As Putin signed this document with his characteristic theatrical flair, he sent this message to his nervous generals: "Don't be afraid. The Hague cannot judge you. I am protecting you legally with the power of Russian law. But there is one enormous, unavoidable truth he has apparently forgotten in his isolation. The magnetic bombs placed under cars in Moscow's parking lots couldn't care less about legal documents or Putin's laws. This timing is highly significant and reveals the regime's desperation. While his generals were literally being blown up on December 22nd and 24th, Putin's attempt to provide paper legal protection on December 29th is nothing less than a testament to how disconnected the Kremlin has become from reality. Putin grants his generals legal immunity from international prosecution. Ukraine, however, subjects them to physical execution in the field through precision intelligence operations. A piece of paper, no matter how official, cannot stop a C4 explosive device. A presidential decree cannot deflect a shaped charge blast. This is the harsh reality Putin's generals now understand completely. A state that cannot maintain basic security in its own capital, where senior military officers are systematically hunted down in the streets like common criminals, reinforces the dangerous perception among international partners of being a weak and unreliable ally. When China and India observe that Putin cannot protect his own officers in his own capital, they question their strategic partnerships with Moscow. A weak partner is an unreliable partner. Ukraine is destroying not only individual officers, but also Russia's credibility. Zelensky's words that justice will prevail are no longer rhetoric. They're a functioning mechanism. Russian officers now face two options: accept trial in The Hague and survive, or trust Putin's false protection and wait to turn into a fireball on Moscow's streets. Those burning vehicles represent the regime's future. Ukraine is bringing the war to Russia's heart, realizing Putin's worst nightmare. So here's my question. Can a Putin who cannot protect his generals in his own capital continue this war? Or are these flames the first spark of internal reckoning that will end the regime? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. If this opened your eyes, share this content. Subscribe to Laura Bennett and hit that notification bell for more analyses that expose the truth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.